Okay. Good evening. And welcome to everyone who's joining us on the internet. Well, I hope you all had an interesting week. In the sense of looking at needs as though they are a threshold of discovery rather than some absolute statement of lack that you have to suffer from. And I also hope that you allowed for the fact that needs have a bad habit of showing up at the most inopportune times. In other words, they always interrupt your schedule. They have no sense of respect for the orderliness you would like to interpose upon your days. Order that you think allows you to accomplish things in an orderly manner, and thereby to be successful by whatever definition of success you're using. I hope that you enjoyed allowing interruptions to your schedule to occur, so that you might have had the experience of flexibility that allowed the unexpected to happen and thereby enriched you to interpose order, no matter how righteously you do it. To interpose order on the flow of life is always as ridiculous as, well, let me ask you, how many of you have seen square watermelons in the store? If you haven't, it was thought that square watermelons would make an interesting marketing device. And so watermelons, as they grew, were placed in a square container, so that as they got larger, they ran into resistance and would grow where there was space, enlarge where there was room, and stop enlarging where it ran into order. Now, how ridiculous is that? Now, when I say that I hope that you allowed the order that you superimpose upon your day to be violated, as though it were a good thing, I'm not suggesting that you're to embrace chaos. But I will tell you this, the automatic assumption is that if order is not applied to life, life will be chaotic, and that is not true. The suggestion is that life is chaos, unless somebody brings intelligence to bear upon it. How many neatniks do we have in the room? And don't raise your hand. How many of you have a place for everything and everything in its place? And heaven help the one who moves something a half an inch. How many don't feel comfortable without having everything exactly where you want it. Let me say this. If the way you arrange things neatly is attractive, you're happy. But what you don't realize is that the obsession with orderliness and having everything exactly where you want it is as much an aberration of the mind as the person who never throws anything away and who keeps everything. Over here are all the daily papers for the last 10 years. And over here are other knickknacks, bottle caps, whatever, that they might have a use for. And it looks like chaos because the order and the obsession with having a place for everything and keeping it is not pretty. Everyone needs to loosen up. Everyone needs to become like the willow tree. Everyone needs to let the unexpected happen. And everyone needs to invite the unexpected. Because as long as you approach your day allowing only for the expected, you will only have what you're already familiar with. Unless, of course, you're expecting the unexpected. But none of you do that as a general rule. A miracle, a sudden shift of perception, goes outside the box, doesn't fit into the existing order, won't meet your expectations. If you want to wake up, if you want to experience enlightenment, if you want to experience the fulfillment of your being, you are going to have to let something else in other than what you're already familiar with and what you're only willing to accept. If the borders of your tent are going to be enlarged, your life is going to have to be shaken up. The boundaries are going to have to be redrawn. And hopefully you will arrive at a point where you will let your being be boundaryless. Because that's where the reality of you will be able to register with you, and where you will not maintain a distance from yourself and your brothers, or yourself and the world, and you will cease to maintain separation. You must understand that if you are going to allow needs to register with you, which are weaknesses in your ego structures, where the pressure of your divinity has a chance to break through, that you are going to be confronted with order with a capital O. If you will allow the breakthrough to occur, chaos will not be the result. I could say that if you let the breakthrough occur, a higher order of things will register with you, but it would be just as well to say a deeper order of things. A better way of saying it would be a more fundamental order of things. something utterly at one with your nature. Something exhibiting the characteristics of God, which you don't have to be afraid of, but which your ego will be. Your tendency to want to hold on to the order you have established because it makes you feel safe, that will be violated, and it will be unsettling. The word disillusioned is in most people's eyes a rather negative word. Well, I was disillusioned about so-and-so, or I was disillusioned about the government. What it means is that you have become free of illusion. To become disillusioned is an excellent thing. To become free of artificial structures and order that you are applying to life so as to make you feel safe while you're still insane is not intelligent, and it won't be healing, and it will keep you locked in to the status quo. Want to be disillusioned. Want to be put in the position of having false binding structures broken down, freeing you up. So that you might have the wonderful opportunity to feel the divine order of things that's already in place and never stopped being. Now, in experiential terms, throughout your days, you are busy, as a general rule, thinking and reasoning and calculating and planning. You're very, very busy in your mind bringing things into whatever you call orderliness. Why do you do this? Because you're afraid of disorder. But there is something else you can do. And the something else you can do is to become still. The something else you can do is to stop thinking. Abandon the reasoning, abandon the calculating, abandon the prognosticating, abandon psyching out your neighbor or your brother or your friend or your business partner and what he or she is likely to do based on past experience and what effect that's going to have on you, and therefore what you had better do so as not to have any more upset than is already going on in your life occurring. You see, you do all of this to protect yourself. But there is something else you can do. You can abandon that. Well, no, I can't. I'm too nervous about what might happen, and I've got to attend to that. Every meditator will tell you that no matter what is occupying their mind before they meditate, no matter what is going on in their life, before they sit down to take time to be still, even if it's only for 20 minutes out of their day, that no matter what is going on, when they sit down, giving themselves the kindness of becoming still, they move into an experience of peace. I've said before, as it says in the Course, In so many words, there is a place of excellence in you. Well, you know what? These are not the best words, but there is a place of peace in you, and it always accompanies you, no matter what is going on. It is ever present. It's not just a place in you, it is the context of your being, of your real being, of the Christ that you are. Again, no matter what is going on, whether you seem to be dying of cancer, whether or not someone else you know is injured and needs immediate attention, and you're the only one there to deal with it. No matter whether the baby is crying because he's hungry. No matter what. Your peace is available to you. You do not have to cope with the events in your life from the frightened busyness of your mind, where you are constantly calculating everything so as to bring about the best result, meaning your safety. You can choose for your peace. But you know what? You have to break a habit in order to do that. You have to break the habit of obsessively thinking. You have to break the habit of obsessively worrying. You have to be willing to say, I'm going to sit down for 20 minutes. And I'll pick up and worry after the 20 minutes is over. I'll think after the 20 minutes is over. I'll be upset after the 20 minutes is over. But for these 20 minutes, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to become still. I'm going to give my attention to the sensation of the air as it moves through my nose as I'm breathing. And if I find myself thinking, I will gently bring my attention back to the sensation of the air moving through my nostrils while I'm breathing, and nothing else. Or I'm going to use a mantra. And when I find myself distracted by a fear or a thought or whatever, I'm going to bring my attention back to the mantra for 20 minutes. And afterwards, I'll worry about things. Now, many people meditate, but they think that what they're doing is bringing their body into a state of relaxation. They think that the quietness is a body not being tense. And that it is temporary unless they maintain it by meditating frequently. But I am telling you that the peace that you arrive at isn't a body that's relaxed. It's you experiencing the context of your being. It is you experiencing the fundamental nature of you. It's you experiencing an utterly divine dynamic. Peace. And you all have the choice to be conscious of everything there is for you to be conscious of from that peace. And it is equally possible for you to engage in watering your garden, or conversing with a friend, or driving to the store, and being active in that peace. Peace is not immobilization. Peace is not inactivity. Peace is your birthright from which to be. Now, the interesting thing is that when you do this and you move into your peace, fear, anxiety, anger, jealousy are nowhere to be found. If you stay in your peace and consider the circumstances that seemed to arouse those emotions are nowhere to be found. Because you are able, as mind, as awareness, to consider all things from your peace, in which there is clarity available to you, with which to deal with those circumstances in a non-reactive way, in a non-defensive way, in a non-self-protective way that embraces everyone and everything involved, so that, as the saying goes, the result is a win-win situation. None of you are handicapped with a horrible life. The only thing you're handicapped by is an intention that you have to cope with it from a context of reaction. And you have another choice. Now, we talked last week about the fact that needs are messy because they are a threshold or a process of change. And that the need is to be willing to address those needs by being present with them and being open to the miracle that they are the threshold for. Well, how do you be open to the miracle? You be open to the miracle by being present with the need from your peace. By choosing not to try to handle it all by yourself, and not to try to be the authorizer of a resolution or a solution, but instead to recognize that this dynamic is a call for greater clarity, which is on your immediate horizon, or on the immediate horizon of a friend who is experiencing a need, sees it as a lack, sees no other way to look at it, and finds the experience distressing. Someone who needs a mentor. Someone who needs you to be willing to stand with them. How? Reacting as they are? No. But choosing instead to listen. How do you listen? You shut up. You be still. And you invite the clarity that the need is the threshold of. And you stand quietly, making room for it. Something you cannot do when you are being defensive, when you are being reactive. I've talked before about the difference between emotions and feelings. Feelings, properly identified, relate to soul. Your capacity to feel the divinity of everything. Emotions are reactions experienced by you when you are attempting to be unjoined with your Father, to be independent and autonomous, to be actively separate from everyone and everything. And emotions are the way the ego interprets the, I'm going to say, dynamic invitation of your divinity to let yourself into the larger perspective of truth than the ego is allowing. Harmony is the divine equivalent of order, the kind of order that you would individually like to apply to and coerce things into being. Harmony just is. It isn't applied to anything. It's the nature of everything. Just as peace is the nature of your being. It already is. All of your self-righteous, emotional reactions to situations and people and things are another way in which you practice separation. Feelings, on the other hand, are not a defense against anything. They embrace all things. They are your capacity as soul to recognize and acknowledge and feel and experience what everything divinely is. And that capacity is ever present with you. So, when somebody says, "How are you?" don't say, "Well, I'm not feeling too well." Instead, be honest and say, "Well, to tell you the truth, I'm in a bit of a state of self-righteous reaction. I'm in an emotional twit because I'm unwilling to look at the larger picture, and I'm insisting on determining what all of this means all by myself." Emotions are of the ego. Feelings are of the soul. It's important to make the distinction. Emotions are reactionary, always in the name of self-protection. And self-protection is the means by which you keep a boundary around yourself and between you and everything else. And one of the fundamental reasons for this is that you've forgotten that there's another way to look at things. There is peace in you, forever with you, being the constituting nature of you that you can be from if you make the choice to give your attention there by silencing the incessant ego chatter, which you conveniently call thinking because it's not as offensive a word. Paul is not sitting here thinking about what he's going to say. You don't have to think in order to be intelligent. You don't have to think in order to be meaningful.